High overcrowding rates undermine living conditions. Some cells house 2 or 3 times the number of inmates they are designed to hold. Detainees do not have access to proper medical attention. Only a small percentage of prisoners have access to education, work, sports or to the library. Violence and ill treatment are common during arrest and while in prison. Gang culture is very present in South Africa and therefore reflects behind bars. Sexual abuse is a common phenomenon.
Yo, you're gonna die.
And it is linked to overcrowding rates and understaffing. South Africa has 2 super maximum security prisons, C-Max, in Pretoria, and Devonwini, in Kokstad. The second one is considered to be the biggest supermax prison in the world, with 1,440 places. The Kutama Centennial Correctional Center is run by the American private corrections company Geo Group, and the Mange Correctional Center is run by the British security company G4S. Allegations of torture, including electrocuting inmates, have been made against the G4S prison workers in the past. Prison conditions in South Africa are particularly dire. Inmates and remand detainees experience extreme overcrowding and inhumane living conditions, including poor ventilation, inadequate ablution facilities, lack of sanitation and privacy, a shortage of beds and bedding, insufficient supervision and oversight, and poor healthcare provision. Consequent of these conditions, prisons can be hotbeds for sexual violence and disease transmission, including human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, and tuberculosis, TB. In fact, recent research has found that globally the incidence of both TB and HIV are higher in prison populations than in the general society too. In South Africa, HIV prevalence in prison populations is estimated at 15.6%, which is more than 3 times higher than the general population, and TB prevalence 7. South African prisons are places of extreme violence. Assaults on prisoners by correctional guards and other inmates are common and often fatal. The prison system could be substantially improved, even without major costs to the taxpayer. Changes should focus on benefits, the handling of juvenile offenders, inmate access to information, abuse and punishment by correctional guards, the holding of prisoners in police lockups, cell space, food, exercise, visits, legal representation, vocational training, and correctional personnel management. Prisons in South Africa are considered some of the worst detention centers in the world. Reports have shown them to be sites of violence, overcrowding, human rights violations and the breeding ground for many other problems among inmates. Prisoners that belong to the lower economic crust prior to their incarceration are more likely to go to prison and receive longer sentences. Furthermore, they become more vulnerable to abuse that's a fact, illness and even premature death. The lack of respect for basic human dignity and the lack of resources and options available to inmates feed the perpetual cycle of high incarceration rates in South Africa alongside other impoverished countries. Nelson Mandela was arrested on several occasions and stood trial 4 times. He spent over 27 years in prison. Nelson Mandela, leader of the movement to end South African apartheid, is released from prison after 27 years on February 11, 1990. In 1944, Mandela, a lawyer, joined the African National Congress, ANC, the oldest black political organization in South Africa, where he became a leader of Johannesburg's youth wing of the ANC. In 1952, he became Deputy National President of the ANC, advocating nonviolent resistance to apartheid, South Africa's institutionalized system of white supremacy and racial segregation. A group of 6 prisoners escaped from a police van in South Africa on Friday after it was attacked by armed gunmen. The van was heading to a court in the suburbs of Johannesburg, police said, as they launched a manhunt for them. Police have launched the manhunt after 6 detainees escaped. The detainees escaped on their way to the Pollsmoor courthouse, the police said in a statement, about 30 kilometers southeast of the capital. The van was ambushed at a crossroads by 3 armed men driving a luxury car. According to the police, 5 of the inmates who escaped are Zimbabweans who were due to be arraigned in the morning on charges of armed robbery, attempted murder and illegal possession of a firearm. Former South African President Jacob Zuma has been freed from prison on medical parole due to ill health, the government's Correctional Services Department said Sunday. Zuma, 79, has been serving a 15-month prison sentence since July for contempt of court after defying a summons to appear at an inquiry into corruption during his time in office. Africa crazy. A total of 21 prisoners escaped from the country's prisons during the 2021-2022 financial year, the Department of Justice said. The majority of them, 12, had been rearrested. During that period, 117 prisoners escaped but 99 were rearrested. The Western Cape accounted for the majority of the prison breaks with 75 recorded. 4 escapees who fled from Rwanda were named as Zahariel Francisco Nyolame, a Mozambican serving a 27-year sentence for housebreaking and murder, Alfred Guam, a Mozambican serving 65 years for housebreaking, theft and possession of a stolen vehicle, Sibonga Saiful, a South African serving a life sentence for rape, theft and housebreaking, and Edward Madiba, a South African serving 15 years for robbery and possession of a firearm. Johannesburg, a former Portuguese bank chief who was arrested in South Africa in December last year after fleeing to the country to avoid a jail sentence for tax fraud and other crimes, was found dead in his prison cell in Durban, authorities said on Friday. South African convict Abel Bester, also known as the Facebook rapist for using the social networking site to lure his victims, has been found dead in his prison cell, according to local media reports.